Hi, my name is Caitlyn. I'm a gender studies major and a sophomore at Harvard, and I'm teaching a class about the Constitution, specifically called Constitution Building. Now, you might wonder why it's called Constitution Building, since you might think of the Constitution as something that's pretty old, right? Why do we need to build new constitutions if we have old constitutions? Well, our constitution right now is still being built as we speak about it. It's a living document that gets amended and changed and argued about all the time. So it's important to understand how constitutions work so that we can understand how our government works, because a constitution makes a government. Now, I've been talking a lot about constitutions without really defining it. So, in our class, we talk about a constitution as a set of rules that the government has to follow. And in order to understand how that rules work, we say, what if we had our own country that we could do whatever we want in? How would we write a constitution to decide how that country would function? So, when we're talking about creating our own countries, we talk about 5 different types of government that a country might have. The first types of government are democracies, a representative democracy or a direct democracy. So a representative democracy is the type of government that we have in the United States right now. It's a democracy where we vote, that's the democracy part, and we vote for representatives, and the representatives make the laws. In a direct democracy, it's a little different. It's more direct, as the name suggests. So you vote for the laws themselves instead of for representatives. For example, if the government's deciding whether to build a bridge, in a representative democracy, you would vote for legislators who then vote whether to build the bridge. In a direct democracy, you would vote directly, yes or no, onto whether to build the bridge. So the 3 other types of government we talk about are not democracies. They are theocracy, oligarchy, and dictatorship. And they're a little bit different. In a theocracy, the government and the religious organization are the same thing. So, for example, in Vatican City, where the Pope is in charge, the Pope is in charge of the Catholic Church, but also in charge of the government of Vatican City. That means that there's really no separation between the church and the government. And you could have a theocracy of any sort of religion. You could have a theocracy where the rabbi are in charge. You could have a theocracy where imams are in charge. Anything like that would count as a theocracy. Now, a dictatorship is even different than a theocracy. It's a sort of government where one person makes all of the decisions. So you hear a lot of dictatorships nowadays. For example, North Korea has a dictatorship. One man makes all of the decisions. He has absolute power. We also had a lot of dictatorships in ancient history. Kings and queens were dictators, and they made all the decisions that were in their power to make. Though it's important to note that even though a dictator makes all the decisions, if you have a certain constitution, there are still some things the constitution can prevent that dictator from doing. For example, in the 1200s in England, there was a king. But the nobles decided this king was using too much power, and they wanted to prevent him from making decisions they didn't like. So what they did was they wrote a constitution called the Magna Carta. And that constitution made it so the king had to follow certain rules when he made his decisions. He was still the only person making those decisions, but he still had to follow certain rules. And that is a dictatorship. In the next and last type of government that we talk about, an oligarchy, it's a little bit different. An oligarchy is when a group of people make all of the decisions. So, for example, it could be the dictator and the dictator's best friends. If they were all equal in that situation and were all making decisions together, then that would count as an oligarchy technically, because it would be a group of people in power. Or it could be 1,000 unrelated people who are all in the same group and they're all in power. That would also count as an oligarchy. So, for example, the group of people could be decided by family. It could be decided by everybody has to take an IQ test and the smartest people rule the government. Or it could be an aristocracy where the richest people are in power. An aristocracy is a type of oligarchy. So that is what an oligarchy is. And those are the 5 types of government that we talk about in this class. And so when we talk about those types of government, we kind of think about, okay, which sort of these would be my ideal government if I was in charge? Because it's important to think, what would the world look like if I had power? Because someday you will have power. If you, work on it and, get to some place where you can make a lot of decisions, you want to be able to have the responsibility to make those decisions, which is why we talk a lot about constitutions in this class and do this little thought experiment. So that's a little bit about my class, and I hope that you enjoyed it.